With that, I'll pass it along to Kelly.
Thank you so much, Nora. I appreciate it. My name is Kelly Nelson, and I am the Outreach and Communications Manager for Maryland ABLE. I'm delighted to be with you tonight, and I'm grateful that you are here to learn about Maryland ABLE. I always like to share with everyone that in addition to working with Maryland ABLE, I'm also a parent of a child with multiple disabilities. My daughter, her name is Lily. She is 17 years old and she has her own Maryland ABLE account. So in addition to understanding about how the program works, I also have this practical real life experience with ABLE accounts. And that's why I'm so excited to share things with you tonight, because over the last 3 years of helping Lily manage her ABLE account and serving as her authorized legal representative, I've really seen how an ABLE account has really helped to promote her personal choice. It's fostered independence and self-reliance. It's helped her to build some financial literacy skills, as well as just given her father and I a way to start planning and preparing for her future. So I've got lots of great information to share with you guys tonight. And my plan is that I'm going to do a basic overview of ABLE legislation, ABLE accounts in general, because I would venture to say that some of you that are joining us tonight are just hearing about ABLE accounts for the first or second time and want to learn more about it. Some of you may even have ABLE accounts and are here because you just want to learn a little bit more about how to use your account. So we're going to start with that broad overview of how ABLE accounts work, talking about eligibility criteria and enrollment and how it works. And then we're going to sort of hunker down a little bit and talk about Maryland ABLE specifically and some of the features that we have here. So that's my plan for tonight. As Nora said, I am going to be pausing after every couple of slides. After doing this for a couple of years, I kind of know when we get to those slides that prompt a lot of questions. So we're going to do some check-in periods. Feel free to use that chat and we will answer your question at that point. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about Maryland ABLE. Let's talk about ABLE accounts actually in general. And what are ABLE accounts? Well, ABLE accounts are a way for people with disabilities and their families to finally be able to save and invest money without jeopardizing those state or federal means tested benefits. These are things like SSI, Medicaid, and related waivers. And the reason I say finally is because a lot of folks who have qualified and received SSI cash benefits have had a real challenge in that they were not ever able to have any more than $2,000 in assets. So this presents a real problem. I mean, how are we going to talk about what do you want for your future? What do you see your best life? Where do you want to live? What do you want to do? Plan for that and save for that. Oh, but by the way, you can't save any more than $2,000 or you're going to jeopardize those benefits. So thankfully, through the advocacy efforts of so many people over the years, people with disabilities, their family members, advocacy groups, and under the leadership of one special parent in particular named Stephen A. Beck Jr. He really pioneered this process, and he saw it all the way through to its passing of its legislation in 2014 under the Obama administration. And when this was signed into law, it was called the Stephen A. Beck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act. So that's where we get the acronym ABLE. And when this law was passed, it was a federal law that gave states across the country the opportunity to open ABLE programs. But it didn't federally mandate that they do it, and it didn't provide them with any funding. So it's taken some time to see these ABLE accounts pop up around the country. Currently, we have 44 programs nationwide, and Maryland is one of them. I like to tell people right up front that the ABLE legislation is actually embedded in the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529A. And I know you're thinking, come on, Kelly, it's 6 o'clock at night. I do not want to hear about legislation and especially IRS. But I like to bring that out because one of the misconceptions that we have about ABLE accounts is that those regulations are tied to Social Security law or sometimes Medicaid law. And that's not the case. They're actually embedded with the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529 for ABLE, alongside of 529 college savings. So that's where we are, and we'll see some tie-ins as we move forward in that. Here in Maryland, our program was signed into law in 2016, but we didn't launch until November of 2017. So we're about ready to celebrate our 4th birthday coming up next month. So some of you are maybe just hearing about us for the first time. So let's talk about why ABLE legislation is such a big deal and why people wanted to open ABLE accounts or why they do open ABLE accounts. The first is that it gives people the opportunity to increase their saving limit beyond that $2,000. And you know, money that's kept outside of an ABLE account in a regular checking or savings account, you know, once it goes beyond that $2,000 asset limit, you can jeopardize your benefits. But money inside of an ABLE account, you can have up to $100,000 in an ABLE account before it impacts those benefits. So right away, we can see that's a drastic difference. And for the first time in decades, people with disabilities were finally able to save for things that are important to them. You know, if someone wanted to save for their first apartment or they wanted to get an adapted vehicle for transportation. I mean, these are expensive items, and it's hard to do that when you can't save more than $2,000. So that's really the biggest reason that people open ABLE accounts. But the other reason is because, you know, it also protects those federal means tested benefits outside of SSI, things like Medicaid, waiver services like food, housing, or energy assistance. So those are really important things too, that people that are receiving public benefits, they rely on those. So we want to be able to have an asset protection to make sure that they can continue to receive them as they save and invest and plan for the future. The other reason is that there are no federal or state taxes on the earnings that are in an ABLE account. Not when the money's in your ABLE account and not when it comes out, provided that you're using the money for what we call qualified disability expenses. And we're going to talk about that much more in just a few minutes. Another reason that people really like opening ABLE accounts is that here in Maryland, we have access to a Maryland state income deduction on our Maryland state taxes. So for money that you contribute to an ABLE account, if you live in Maryland and file Maryland state taxes, the money that you contribute to an ABLE account, you can use to reduce your income up to $2,500 per contributor per ABLE account. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute as well. The other thing is that it's easy online enrollment and account management. So for years, people, you know, to fill out these big applications and go through all this paperwork and then find out that they're denied. Pardon me. That has been just so disheartening for so many people. With ABLE accounts, you can enroll directly online and you can do it within 15 minutes and it's all said and done. So that's a nice thing too. The other reason is it's easy to access your funds in the account, which is a little bit different sometimes if people are using other tools like maybe perhaps a special needs trust and have to go through a trustee. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well in just a moment. Let's take a look at who qualifies for an ABLE account. Basically, you have to meet 2 criteria. Number 1, the person has to have developed the onset of their disability prior to their 26th birthday. And the second is that the disability must meet the Social Security Administration's definition of a disability. So we can determine that one of 2 ways. When you're in the enrollment process online, one of the first questions it's going to ask you is, do you currently receive SSI or SSDI? If the answer is yes, you kind of get to skip ahead a little bit because we already know that Social Security has examined your documentation and found that you do indeed have a disability that meets their definition. a disability. The second way that you can do that is, let's just say, you're talking about someone who's under the age of 18 and they're currently not receiving SSI services, SSI benefits or SSDI. This is the case for me, for my family, for my daughter, because sometimes when people apply for SSI cash benefits, they don't qualify because they're looking at the entire family's income. And that usually puts them over that threshold. But once the individual turns 18, they are looking at just that person's income, and it's usually much lower or sometimes none at all. For example, when my daughter turns 18, she's still going to be in high school. She doesn't have a job. She will not have an income. So obviously she'll meet that definition of a disability, and she'll also have income, no income. So, she'll qualify on that level as well. So that is, I want to just debunk two myths right away. The first is, I have to be receiving SSI or SSDI. That is not true. You can get a disability certification form from your doctor, which is what I did for my daughter. That is available on our website at www.marylandable.org. Under the resource section, there's a tab called forms, and all the forms that I'm going to talk about tonight are going to be under that tab. So you could just download, print off a copy of that disability certification form and take that to the physician and have that person fill it out and sign it. And that's all you would need. The second myth I want to just clear up right away is that people think they have to have a disability, they have to open their ABLE account by the time they're 26. So that's not true. We have ABLE account holders that are a couple months old. We have ABLE account holders that are in their 80s. So you just had to have the onset of the disability by your 26th birthday, but you can open an ABLE account at any time. Let's look at who owns the ABLE account. So with ABLE, it is always owned by the person with the disability. They are both the owner and the beneficiary. So sometimes you might hear me call the person the account holder or the account owner. Sometimes I'll refer to that person as the beneficiary. It's one and the same. This is a little different than some other things. Like some people, you can open a special needs trust and somebody else may own the trust, but the beneficiary is for someone else. This is also the case for like a college savings plan. I could open a college savings plan. It would be my plan, but I could make the beneficiary someone else. So but with ABLE, that person with the disability is always the owner. And we believe that the foundation of ABLE philosophy is that people with disabilities should be involved in information regarding their finances. So for those ABLE account holders that can manage their account on their own, that's fantastic. We want to see that. That's terrific. And we have many that do. However, we have almost 4,000 ABLE account holders. Many of those folks either want or need someone to help them manage their ABLE account. And so the provision we have to support a person in managing an ABLE account is called the authorized legal representative, or what I'm going to refer to from here on out as the ALR. So if you're opening an ABLE account for a child under the age of 18, you have to have an ALR on the account because minors are not allowed to have their own financial accounts, not just ABLE accounts, but banks don't let minors just have an account without having an adult on it. So if you're opening an ABLE account, a parent is usually, or someone in the family is usually the ALR on the account as the adult. But once that person turns 18, he or she will have to give consent for someone to stay on the account as the ALR. And this can be done in a couple of ways. Sometimes parents get power of attorney over property. Sometimes the account holder, if they have more significant needs, there are times that some of our account holders, they actually have guardianship. A parent might have guardianship. So you could upload a copy of your guardianship papers or power of attorney. But for those who don't need guardianship and you're not really quite sure if you want that power of attorney over all finances, what you could do is go to the ABLE account, to that form section, and download a form called a limited power of attorney over ABLE account only. So this is a form that has been developed that allows you to just print the form off. You and the account holder would take it to a notary. This could be someone at the bank or the library. I heard FedEx stores have it, Staples, Office Depot. You can go access a notary there. And the account owner would sign it, as well as the adult that's going to be serving, a family member or whoever's going to be serving as the ALR. And it just needs to be notarized, and you would upload that document, and that's how you would have consent to be on the ABLE account as well. So let's take a little pause here, because I've covered a couple of things, and let's check in with Nora and see if we have any questions in the chat.
Hey, we do have one question so far, which is asking, how can I directly deposit from an employer into an ABLE account?
Okay, that is something we're going to touch on a little bit down the road, but I will tell you that if you are the ABLE account owner, or you're serving as the ALR, you can fill out a direct employee. Oh my goodness, why can't I say these words? Payroll deduction form. Okay, that was so hard. Payroll deduction form, and that's available on our website as well.
Great,
I'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about Maryland's features.
Okay, and we have another question about, when would somebody have SSI and when would they have SSDI, or just one or both?
Okay, sometimes people have one or the other, and I've also heard of people having both. So because I work for Maryland ABLE, I really only, my knowledge is about ABLE accounts specifically, and I don't have a lot of experience and expertise about SSI or SSDI benefits, but what I do understand from what I've been told by other families is that people can receive one or both. SSI or SSDI are funds that someone might receive because they have a disability, but they've also either paid into Social Security through a job that they had, and then they became disabled and started receiving those benefits. Sometimes a parent's SSDI benefits can be passed on to a child. So that's how that happens with SSDI. That refers to someone who's paid into Social Security through employment of some sort. And SSI would be a disability cash benefit that you get that's not related to you paying into Social Security. It's just available for you as a public benefit if you qualify. So I hope that helps shed a little light on it in layman's terms.
Great, thank you, Kelly. And okay, here's another one. Can you make direct transfers from personal savings account into an ABLE account?
Well, I'd have to know a little bit more about the specifics, but ABLE accounts are linked to an existing bank account. So someone could link their ABLE account to a savings account. And so maybe if this doesn't help answer that question, maybe we can talk about that a little bit more when we get down the road, just a few slides, and we talk about that linked account a little more.
Perfect, thanks again.
Sure. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we need to know regarding contributions to an ABLE account. So in order to open an ABLE account, it takes a minimum initial deposit of $25. This isn't a fee, that is that person's money that they're funding that ABLE account with when they open it. After that, people can decide when they want to put ABLE money into their ABLE account and how much. But there is a minimum $10 contribution. So this is something that I used to have to remind my daughter about this a lot, because she would get a $5 a week allowance for some jobs she was doing around the house. And sometimes she'd say, Mom, I want to put my allowance in my ABLE account. And I'd say, well, Lily, we're going to have to save it up until you get $10, because that's the minimum deposit number. So with an ABLE account, you can contribute up to $15,000 a year towards that standard annual contribution limit. And this is something that is defined in the Internal Revenue Code. This is something, that limit is established by the IRS, and it's actually tied to the gift tax law, which states that somebody can give someone else a gift up to $15,000 without them having to pay taxes on it. So the reason I share that with you is this amount can change from time to time. When we launched our program back in 2017, the standard annual contribution limit was $14,000. And then the IRS upped that gift tax amount. So now our standard annual contribution limit is $15,000. And this means that you can only contribute up to $15,000 per calendar year. And then they'd have to, you couldn't put any more money after that. Now that I've told you that, I'm going to turn around and tell you an exception to the rule. Isn't that fun? That's the way we tend to do it here, right? With the English language, we give you the rules, I before E, except after C, we give them the, the exception. So the exception to that are folks who have ABLE accounts and are also working. They qualify for what we call able to work contributions, which means that they can contribute above and beyond that $15,000 annual standard contribution limit. They can actually contribute up to $12,760 above that if they qualify. And the way that they qualify for able to work contributions, you have to meet a couple criteria. Number one, you have to have a job. You have to be employed, right? And you cannot be contributing to a retirement account with your employer. And your employer cannot be contributing to a retirement account for you. But if you're working and not contributing to like a 401k or a 403b, you're able to take advantage of those additional savings. And this number, this 12,760, this changes every year because it's tied to the, it's actually tied to the single family income level for a poverty level income wage. So it usually goes up, a little bit every year, but this means that if you're making, say, we're working part-time and you're making $5,000 a year, and if you could, and if you wanted to put it all into the ABLE account, you could do that. If you later down the road get a full-time job and a raise, and now you're making $20,000 a year, you would still be capped at that $12,760. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. But I have a slide coming up about that if you guys want to know more information about it, we can cover that. The important thing to know now, this is the big one, that $100,000 contribution limit that we talked about a few minutes ago. This is the amount of money that you can have saved or invested in your ABLE account before it would impact those SSI cash benefits. Okay, so and to touch upon that question that somebody asked earlier about the difference between SSI and SSDI, with SSI cash benefits, there is that $2,000 limit, resource limit. With SSDI, they don't have that. So it's really important for people who are receiving SSI cash benefits. When they put money in an ABLE account, they can go beyond that $2,000 limit, save up to $100,000 before it would impact. But let's just say things just went really well, and you and family members and all kinds of reasons, you were able to save money and reach that $100,000 limit. If you were to go beyond that limit, this is what would happen. Your Social Security, your SSI cash benefits would go into a state of suspension. This is different from what would happen if you went over a $2,000 limit. After amount of time, you can become disenrolled for having too much money. With an ABLE account, you go into a state of suspension, but your Medicaid and your waivers would remain because you weren't disenrolled, right? You're in a state of suspension. And at any point that you should spend that money down in your ABLE account and fall below that $100,000 balance, Social Security is able to reactivate those SSI cash benefits. You don't have to reapply. They can just reactivate it because you were never disenrolled. So I know that's a big difference between saving money in an ABLE account and outside of an ABLE account. And one last thing before I take a pause for questions, I just want to throw this number out there because I have to share it with you. But there is a $500,000 account balance limit on an ABLE account, after which Maryland ABLE could no longer accept additional contributions unless you were to spend the money down. Now, obviously, we're talking about $15,000 a year cap with, possibly able to work contributions. Getting to $500,000 is going to take some time. And hopefully by then we may not even have this in place anymore. So let's take a little pause here because I've talked a lot about the $15,000 contribution limit, a little bit about able to work, and that $100,000 balance and what happens when we exceed it. Are there any questions about that?
We have a couple of clarifying questions. The first is this $12,760 in addition to the $15,000 standard contribution?
Yes, great question. And that is correct. Anybody can put $15,000 a year in, but only folks who qualify for able to work can go above that $15,000 and put additional money in up to $12,760.
Great, thanks. And another, this one's from Regina. I am self-employed. Can I take advantage of the $12,760?
I believe that you can, as long as you can support the fact that if you're, filing for taxes that shows that you're working and you're making your own income, as long as you would have documentation to support that, it should be fine. But if you want to, I'll put my email in the chat box in the end. If you want to shoot me an email about that and I can get clarification on that, I would be happy to get back with you on that.
Great. All right, next one. So in the state of suspension, where do we put additional money?
You could continue to put money in an ABLE account. You could put it in up to $500,000. But what would happen is your SSI cash benefits would stop. You would no longer receive that monthly SSI cash benefit. That's what would stop. But you could continue to put money into your ABLE account until it reaches that $500,000 mark. The only thing that stops would be the SSI cash benefit. But, if you were relying on that SSI cash benefit, which many people are, they would just spend down some of that money so that it would fall below $100,000.
Okay. And can others contribute to the ABLE account other than the beneficiary? And is there a limit, annual or lifetime?
Yes. The good news is anybody can contribute to an ABLE account. Anybody, family, friends, whoever. There's lots of ways to do that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But yes, the answer is anybody could do that. When they contribute money, they're going to be contributing money towards that annual contribution limit, that standard contribution limit. And then if you are working and qualify for ABLE to work, when you contribute money to your ABLE account, you want to just mark that as an ABLE to work contribution. That way it leaves that $15,000 amount open for anyone who wants to contribute, right?
Yeah. Okay. And Regina asks, what about SSDI accounts?
So SSDI does not have an asset limitation. So they say, it's not like SSI that says you may only have $2,000.
Awesome.
But, a lot of people that do receive SSDI, they still are interested in an ABLE account because sometimes some of the Medicaid and Medicare waiver services that they receive do have asset limits. And also because it's tax-free growth as well.
Okay. And just to clarify, so total yearly is $15,000 from every contributor other than the owner of the account, right?
Provided that the owner of the account qualifies for ABLE to work. Like, for example, my daughter Lily does not have a job. So her annual standard contribution limit is 15,000. She doesn't have a job, so she doesn't qualify for able to work contributions. But I'm very hopeful that in the future, one day she will get a job. And when she does, she can make contributions that would count towards that able to work contribution, which is above and beyond that 15.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Sure, sure. So let me just show, I'm going to make my slides available to you guys. You'll have the whole slide deck if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this slide in here. It's called the able to work slide that just provides a little more clarification about how you qualify, which basically is you have to have a job, number one, and number two, you cannot be contributing to a retirement account with your job through your employer. And your employer can't be putting money into a retirement account for you. And the reason is the IRS says, okay, guys, you're going to get one shot at tax-free savings. Okay, you can either do it through your retirement account or you can do it through your ABLE account. Now, hear me when I say that doesn't mean that you can't contribute money to your ABLE account. You can always contribute money to your ABLE account. You just can't contribute above and beyond that $15,000 limit if you don't qualify for able to work. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that slide in here and you guys can reference it later if you need it. Another way that people are able to contribute to their able to work, to their ABLE account is through the ABLE Financial Planning Act, which basically states that if someone has opened a 529 college savings plan for you, and then you may say, you know, I'm not sure that I'm going to be using this college savings plan to go to a traditional four-year college. I don't know if I'm going to do it. You're able to roll that money over from a college savings plan into your ABLE account. It's still subjected to that $15,000 a year limit. So let's just say grandma, when you were born, opened up a college savings plan for you, and she's got $30,000 in it. I'm making this up. And you know, you're thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to do it. I may want to do a trade school. I don't know what I want to do. You can roll that money into your ABLE account, $15,000 for 3 years in a row, move all that $45,000 over, and then you can still use it for education, for college, for trade school, but you can also use it for a whole bunch of other things, which we'll talk about under qualified disability expenses. So it gives you flexibility to be able to use that money that was saved and invested for you for college, to be able to use it for college and education and all kinds of other things. Okay. When you have money in an ABLE account, you have some options of how you want to keep your money. Currently, we have a couple options. The first one is what we call the cash savings option. And this is very similar to what the type of account that you would see in a bank, where it's paying the interest that the federal government states that the interest rate is. Right now, that is not very much money. That is a federal rate. It applies to banks across the country. The nice thing about it, though, is it is an FDIC insured banking product. So just like other savings and checking accounts, it's insured up to $250,000, right? The downside right now is that it's not paying a lot of interest right now because the interest rate is very low, practically nothing, right? The other option that we have is to choose one of our investment choices. Currently, we have three. We have the conservative, the moderate, and the aggressive option. So the conservative option is an investment in a mutual fund that is managed by Vanguard, and it is made up of about 20% stocks and 80% bonds. So this is going to be earning more interest typically than what you're going to have from a regular savings account. The aggressive option is the opposite. It's going to be 84% is going to be invested in the stock market, with just 16% invested in government bonds. So what we see here is the opportunity to be able to have a higher earning potential But the challenge with that is it's riskier, because just because your money's in an ABLE account in, in the investment feature, it doesn't protect you from the risks of investment. So if that stock market goes down and your stocks go down, you could lose money. But that's a personal choice between, how people want to use ABLE accounts. That moderate investment option is a 50-50 split between government bonds and stocks. I don't want you guys to get caught up on this. This is something that you can think about more, research more, learn more about. But I just want you to know for tonight's presentation that you have options on how you can have your money in your ABLE account. A regular FDIC federal interest rate kind of savings option, or you can actually choose a mutual fund, which is a mixture of stocks and bonds. And that's something that you may need help just checking with somebody that knows more about investments. I know, some people can consult a financial advisor. Some people are just really, really financially savvy, and they know a lot about it. So it really is a personal choice, but I want you to know you have some options there. The other thing is, if you're enrolling in an ABLE account and you don't know what to do, so you pick, I don't know, the cash option for right now, you can go back in, log in online, and you can change that selection in about 1 minute. Up to 2 times a calendar year. So if you start out in the cash savings and you say to yourself, I was talking to somebody that gave me good financial advice. I'm thinking of moving it into one of those investment choices. You would log into your account and just change the selection. It's as simple as that. And you can do it up to 2 times a year. So we talked a little bit about who can contribute to an ABLE account. And I said anybody, and I truly mean anybody. It can come from the account holder, him or herself. It could be from family, friends. It could come from money from your job, direct deposited from your paycheck if you want. Unemployment funds can be deposited into an ABLE account. Economic stimulus payments. This was huge this year, guys, huge, because we had so many adults, so many folks with disabilities that received these economic stimulus payments. And they came in big chunks, right? So if they didn't have an ABLE account and they had close to $2,000 in their bank account, and this stimulus payment came in, what happened? It threw them right over to being over-resourced, and it jeopardized their benefits. So there was lots of people calling and saying, please, let's get this ABLE account set up right away. I'm over-resourced. Let's put those stimulus funds in an ABLE account. Because at the time, what they were saying is, Social Security was saying, well, we're going to give you a 12-month grace period on that. But after 12 months, any money that's left out of that stimulus payment is going to count against you as assets. Since then, they've changed that, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well in just a couple more slides. But economic stimulus payments was a big way that people were funding their ABLE accounts this year. You can roll over money from a 529 college savings plan. You can use it for small inheritances or small settlements. And so right away, as I say, inheritances and settlements, some of you are thinking, oh, okay, well, let's think about this, Kelly. If my annual contribution limit is $15,000 a year, and my great Aunt Elizabeth passes away and leaves me $20,000 in her life insurance policy, I can't put that into an ABLE account. And you're absolutely correct. It's still going to be subject to that $15,000 a year. So this is where we see the need for multiple planning tools. This is where those special needs trusts come in handy. And ABLE accounts are not in competition with special needs trust, and special needs trusts are not in competition with ABLE accounts. We see many of people who have both. Some people start with a ABLE account, and then as they do additional planning and looking into the future, they decide that they want to have a special needs trust for a family member so that they can put their life insurance policy in there when they pass away. So there's many different reasons for different types of tools. And Nora, if you wouldn't mind typing this in the chat, there's a really great website. It's called specialneedsanswers.com. So www.specialneeds answers.com. And they explain the difference between special needs trust and ABLE accounts, how they're different, how they work best for one scenario, how they work best for another scenario. It's a very personal choice that you really need to sit down and think that through. But what I like about this site is it also gives you a tool. It's a search tool that lets you look for an attorney, a special needs trust attorney, an elder law care attorney, someone that specializes, has been certified to work with people with disabilities and their families. So this isn't just a regular lawyer that you can just look up on the internet that says, oh, I can do a will and a trust and all this kind of stuff. This is somebody who has extensive knowledge about public benefits, about SSI, about Medicaid, and making sure that you get the right kind of trust set up, not just a trust, but a special needs trust, of which there are 3 different types. So you really want to make sure that when you consult with somebody, you're talking to someone who really understands the needs, the planning needs of a person with a disability and their public benefits. And you can search on that tool. You can type your state in. You can actually limit it to, look, I live in Elkton, Maryland. I want special needs trust attorneys in Elkton, and they will show you those that are certified in working with special needs trust. So that's a really great tool. All right, I'm going to stop here for a second because I know I've covered lots of information here. So let's take some questions.
All right, thanks again, Kelly. Okay, well, the first one is, what is the process of qualifying for the $12,760 contribution if you are working?
If you are working, well, again, you're going to self-certify that you are working. If you're working, you're probably going to be filing taxes or have documentation that you're being paid, that you're receiving money, you're earning income. So as long as you have that, you don't have to submit that to Maryland ABLE. But in the event of an audit, you will not be audited by Maryland ABLE. But in the event of an audit, and who would that be, right? The IRS. Now, let me just tell you, if you have an ABLE account, you are not any more likely to be audited by the IRS, but you're also not any less likely. So if you just happen to get lucky enough to be pulled for an audit, they're going to want to know a couple of things. Number one, do you qualify to have this tax advantage savings account? Well, that you would prove by your either receiving SSI or SSDI, or you have that disability certification form we talked about. The second thing is they're going to want to know, how are you using this money, right? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. That's this qualified disability expenses. And the third thing they might want to know is, hey, you're making these able to work contributions. Are you employed? Do you have a job? Where's your documentation of that? You got paychecks, you got tax returns. Like, how can you show me that you're employed? So that's when you would need that. But that's only if you're audited. Excuse me one second. My family just arrived home and they forgot that I am on this call and they're making lots of noise. So let me shut the door. Okay. Any other questions?
All right. So here's a clarifying question. So you do not need to have a job in order to contribute to an ABLE account, but just to contribute beyond the $15,000 yearly limit, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we have a question about the logistics of special needs trusts.
Okay.
Just what are the logistics of special needs trusts? Okay.
So a special needs trust is something that you would have to set up with an attorney. And those are those attorneys that I was talking about that specialize in, sometimes they're called estate planning attorneys or elder care attorneys. These are folks that have extensive knowledge of planning for someone that's going to be receiving public benefits like SSI and SSDI. And that is a process that you go through with an attorney. So there is a cost to it. it could be range from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars to establish special needs trust. So that would be that website would be a great website to just check out so you could learn about that. And if you're interested in learning more, perhaps you could consult with someone in your area that would explain that further.
Wonderful. Thanks again.
Mhm.
Those are all the questions we have in the chat for
Okay,
now.
awesome. Terrific. So let's get down to how can I use the money in my ABLE account? I've been putting money in there. What can I use it for? Well, the good news is the way the IRS defines that is very broad. And basically what they're saying is that you can use the money for what is known as qualified disability expenses, or what I'm going to call QDEs from here on out, because it's such a mouthful. And a QDE is anything or any service that is going to support that account holder in his or her health, independence, or quality of life. So that's a pretty broad definition, right? And they've purposely written it that way. There is no list of like 3,002 things that you can use your ABLE account for. They don't do that. They say, you ask yourself as the account holder or as the ALR, ask yourself, does this thing that I want to use the money for, this purchase, does it support the account holder in his or her health, independence, or quality of life? And if the answer is yes, then you could use the money for that. Now, what I have on the slide here is a list of categories, because I know it's hard to think, like, gosh, like what, Kelly? Like, what is that? Give me examples. So what we have is a list of broad categories. It's not intended to be an all-inclusive list, but instead to give you some ideas. So let's take a look at that. The first one, health, prevention, and wellness. Well, that's kind of self-explanatory. Those are your prescriptions, your doctor copays. But you know what? It could also be a gym membership. That supports you in your health, right? So it could be a gym membership. It could also be, therapeutic riding. That supports you in your physical and emotional health, right? When you look at housing, rent, and mortgage, that's kind of self-explanatory, right? But this is the only category for which there's any stipulation. And basically what it says is that if you're going to use money from your ABLE account to pay for your rent or mortgage, you have to withdraw that money and spend it within that month. So this is the month of October. If you're going to pay your October rent, you would need to withdraw the money in October and pay your rent in the month of October. Okay, so it's important to know. Other areas, if you're going to reimburse yourself for, if you're going to transfer money to reimburse yourself for something that you purchased, you could do that, and not have to worry about that 30-day period. But education, it could be for college, room and board, textbooks, but it could also be for tutoring. It could be for anything that you're using for elementary, middle, and high school that support you in your education. Transportation could be Ubers. It could also be purchasing a vehicle, an adapted vehicle, if you will. And when you do purchase a vehicle for the account holder, you can use ABLE funds to maintain that vehicle. So gas, oil changes, tires for the car, right? Basic living expenses, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. Assistive technology, this could be for screen readers and computers, but it could also be for something as simple as your mobile phone, your cell phone, your monthly bill for that, because that's a communication device as well. You can use it for legal fees, or if you have that already, if somebody prepares your taxes, you can pay for that out of your ABLE account. Funeral and burial expenses. So these again are just some examples. So this is usually one of these areas I get lots of questions. So let's stop and see what we've got in the chat box.
So first, was there any QDE that you purchased that was hard to qualify based on your experience?
Okay, that is an excellent question. So remember now, I'm serving as Lily's ALR. She's not making these decisions. At this point, I'm helping to manage her account. So let me give you a specific example. She wanted to take a ballet class, an inclusive ballet class in the community. I had no problem whatsoever going onto the website, signing her up for the class, paying for it with her ABLE prepaid card. If I got audited, I thought to myself, this is easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's exercise, ballet, it's dance, it's exercise. It supports her in her physical health. It supports her in her quality of life because she's with typically developing peers and she's going to be learning communication skills and social skills. This is great, right? Not a problem. This dance class went on from September to May. And when May came along, they had a recital. And everybody in every dance class has to wear the same costume. And these costumes included the same shoes, tights, dress or whatever, rhinestone clips for their hair, little tiaras, the whole thing. Well, I took her prepaid card and I paid for that as well. Now, if I'm sitting down in front of an IRS auditor and he's looking at a receipt for a rhinestone hair clip, he may say, what? How is this possibly a qualified disability expense? But what I would say to him is, sir, in order for her to be able, or ma'am, for her to be able to participate in this recital with everyone else, she had to be wearing the exact same items. And that's what that is for. So there's an example there that would be like something that might be, people would consider iffy, but I felt confident. And really, it's only going to come down to me as the one making that decision. All right. Maintain those receipts, keep them all in an ABLE 2021, put them in a file, all your receipts, and just make sure that you're able to support that. What I can tell you is there's certain things that are definitely not allowed. Let me just break those out right away. You cannot use your ABLE account to pay for gifts for someone else because this is a special tax advantage savings account intended for the benefit of only the person with the disability. So some would argue, well, that's a quality of life issue for me because I want to be able to buy my mom a Mother's Day present. I want to buy my dad a Christmas gift. You cannot use it to buy funds, to buy gifts for anyone else. That's number one. And the second I know that is not going to fly with the IRS is gambling. So forget about heading to Hollywood Casino or MGM Grand or wherever you're nearest to. Gambling is not going to be considered a qualified disability expense.
Okay. Someone wants to know if a special needs trust comes with a debit or credit card for the beneficiary to use.
A special needs trust they can do that. Mm-hmm. I've heard of that. Now, again, I'm not an attorney. I don't do special needs trust. I don't have a special needs trust right now. One day I hope to in the future, but I currently do not. So I can't speak to special needs trusts, but I have heard of families telling me that they did have some sort of card that they were able to use with that. But I guess it depends on how you establish your trust.
Okay. And someone else would like to know if community college personal enrichment classes such as gardening or cooking classes be considered as educational expenses.
Yep, that's an educational expense. It's definitely community college classes. It doesn't have to be a matriculated four-year university. Education is education. So absolutely.
Great. And car maintenance expenses, could that be considered as a transportation expense?
If it's for the vehicle, for the account holder or the beneficiary. So if he or she has his own car that he uses to get to work and you need new tires or an oil change or gas for that vehicle, then yes. But you cannot pay for maintenance for the family's minivan that everybody uses and put new tires on it, because that's different. That's something that everybody uses. Okay. But certainly, let's say you have an adaptive vehicle that is used for the person with the disability. You can use your ABLE account to have that vehicle adapted. Mm-hmm.
Great. And do basic living expenses include food? And where does vacation fall?
Okay, so yes, you can purchase food with your ABLE account, but again, you're not going to be able to purchase groceries for everyone living in the home. So that's where you have to be careful for that. So yes, if they want to go out to eat, they go to the store, they pick up something for themselves. If my daughter goes out to lunch with someone, takes her ABLE prepaid card, she pays for her own lunch. She goes to the store and wants to buy a special whatever she wants, to eat, she can do that as well. Vacations, let me ask you guys, what do you think? If we look at that criteria, supporting someone in their health, independence, or quality of life. I mean, what do you guys think about that? I think vacations support people in their physical and mental health. I think everybody benefits from a vacation that way. I also believe that it's something that supports a quality of life. People want to take a vacation, right? So my daughter, her big dream is to go to Disney one day. I can tell you, speaking on my behalf, my personal choice is that I will be using her ABLE account to pay for her airline ticket to Disney. I will purchase her park ticket with her ABLE account. I will not be able to purchase my ticket to the park with her ABLE account, and she will not be able to pay for my airfare to the park, but she could do that because that is something that supports her in her quality of life.
Great. Okay, next question. You are saying that only the housing expenditure can be spent in the same month. How long can I hold the money from ABLE before spending it?
So the way that it was written is so that, you can't on January 1st say, okay, my rent is $1,000 a month. I'm just going to take out $12,000 on January the 1st and just keep it in my regular checking account and then write a check out every month to pay rent. So what they're saying is, because that's a large amount of money, they want you to take the money out of your ABLE account for the month that you intend to pay for it. So that's the way that works. So you don't want to take it out 2 months in advance, 3 months in advance. When you're going to pay the rent, you take it out within that month. And that's the only thing that comes out like that has that stipulation. The only qualified disability expense.
Okay. Okay, so would a car have to be in the beneficiary's name in order for it to be able to be worked on with ABLE account money?
I guess it would depend, on, again, it's not Maryland ABLE that's going to make that decision. It's going to be the beneficiary, the account holder, or the ALR that's making that choice. And if you're audited, ask yourself, am I going to be able to prove that these repairs on this car were intended for the account holder benefit? Is it his or her car? Now, maybe the car is in a trust name, or maybe the car is in someone else's name, but I can prove to you that this is Lily's car. I'll use my daughter, for example. This is Lily's car. This is how she gets to work. This is how she's transported around. It might be owned by me, but she drives it. If I could prove that, then you'd be able to do that. So really, it's going to be up to you for the person making that decision.
All right. Someone would like to know how you can get an ABLE prepaid card.
Okay, great. Well, we are going to talk about that next. So if there's no more for the qualified disability expenses, I am going to move on to that. So let's talk a little bit first about the ABLE account and establishing that. And so when you open an ABLE account, think about it. There are no brick and mortar buildings called Maryland ABLE, the Bank of Maryland ABLE, right? We've never driven through town and seen a Maryland ABLE bank. So we know that these are going to be online accounts that are going to be linked with an existing bank account. Okay. So when you enroll in an ABLE account, it's going to ask you to provide a linked bank account. I don't mind sharing with you that because my daughter doesn't have a job, she doesn't have her own checking account, I have linked her ABLE account to our personal checking account because we're the ones that are putting money into her ABLE account. So for our convenience, we've linked it to our checking account. Now, some people do it differently. Some people choose, to link it to the account that they receive their SSI benefits in. That's a big hot button. Some people, they gasp when they hear that and say, absolutely no way am I doing that. I don't want it. Some people say, yeah, I like it because it's easier. So that's a personal choice. It really is up to you. Like I said, when my daughter gets older and gets a job, she'll have her own checking account. Maybe I'll change it and link it to that, but it's going to have to be linked with an existing checking account. And that's one of the ways that you're going to be making contributions to the ABLE account. It's also ways that you can withdraw money from the ABLE account. I do like to let people know that you can make deposits with paper checks. This doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, someone will say, look, my grandma sent me this check to Maryland ABLE. Can I deposit it? The answer is yes. You'd have to fill out a paper deposit form. And I believe that they charge a small fee for processing paper checks. Okay. There's also the prepaid card option as far as taking withdrawals out, which we're going to talk about in just a second here. So let's talk about that prepaid card right now. That is something that you have access to with a Maryland ABLE account. Not all ABLE accounts have prepaid cards, but we do. It is not something that's going to come with your account automatically. You'd have to request one. There is an additional fee to have a prepaid card, and it's $1.25 for the month, whether you use the card 20 times or whether you don't use it at all. It's just a flat fee that comes out of your ABLE account of $1.25 a month. But the reason some people choose to have a prepaid card is it's just a really convenient way to access the funds. So, for example, if you're a person that's going to open an ABLE account and your intention is just to put excess funds in there and you really don't plan on using the funds very often or soon, people that they tend not to get the prepaid card, because why would you pay $15 a year for a card that you're either not ever going to use or very rarely use it? However, there's other people that use ABLE accounts in a very different way. They're putting money in every month, but they're using those funds to pay for qualified disability expenses throughout the month. And they want that convenient access. Instead of logging into their ABLE account, taking a transfer out of their ABLE account, transferring it into their linked account and spending the money, they want to bypass that process and just have that prepaid card, because it's a card that you can use online and you can use it in the community. So I don't mind sharing. I happen to have chosen the prepaid card just because of a convenience feature for myself. I'm a working mom. I got 3 kids. I got a lot going on. I'm trying to make things as simple as possible. So I got the prepaid card. When I pick up Lily's prescriptions, I swipe the prepaid card. Comes right out of her ABLE account. When I registered her for that class, that dance class, I was able to sign her up and put in the account number on her ABLE prepaid card and pay for it. Now, I could have charged it on my own credit card for her dance class and then went into her ABLE account when the bill came in, and I could have transferred that $250 out of the ABLE account into my checking account so I could pay for my credit card bill. But to me, it was easier to just use the prepaid card and let that be the way that I do it. I've also linked her prepaid card to things that we charge every month. These are things like her cell phone bill, her orthodontist. Dr. Joe's got to get paid every month. So we just gave him that prepaid card number and he just hits it and I don't even worry about it. It's coming out. So you can see there's a convenience factor, right? So it's not for everybody, but it is for some people if they want that. The other benefit of having the prepaid card is that it has some features on there that are really nice. It helps you to be able to give a report of what your spending looks like. So, you'll be able to see how much money you're using on food, medical, different things like that. So it's a nice little snapshot to see how you're using your funds. You can upload receipts for purchases that you made. So you have everything in one place, which is kind of nice. It makes really good for record keeping. It's a fantastic financial literacy tool. I'm not going to lie. I've used it a lot with my daughter. The very first lesson that she ever learned was the day she got her card. She was super excited, right? Because she's got it up. Looks like it's like a Visa card, right? It's got her name on it. She's super excited. Mom, give me my phone. I want to take a picture of it. I want to show my friends. I want to send a picture to my friends. Oh, no. That was lesson number one. Well, how is she to know that you don't take pictures of your prepaid card or your credit card and send it to people? I mean, she was 16 years old. She had no idea. So that was a great teachable moment. Lily, this is your card. It has access to your money. We don't give this card to people. We don't share it with people. This is your money. So, that was a number one lesson right there. And just having those monthly expenses linked to that prepaid card, she's able to see that balance when she logs in, and she sees that her phone bill comes out of there. And for the first time in her life, she realized, oh my gosh, this phone that I love to text people on, and I love my YouTube channel on here, it costs money. It costs money every month, right? So this has just been a great way to teach her about some budgeting and saving money, so that when she wants to do special things at the end of the month, thank God she can do it a little bit better now. COVID is kind of getting behind us a bit, but she can plan for those things to make sure she has enough money in there. So I could go on and on about the prepaid card, but anyway, it's an option if you want it. It is an additional fee, like we talked about. So that is another way to get money out of the account. One of the other things we have here in Maryland is our online gifting page, which is a fantastic tool. If you guys have ABLE accounts and haven't activated, think about it, because it's a great way to have family and friends support you in your saving and investment goals. You just activate your gift page, and then you can send a link to that page by text, by email, through Messenger, however you want to do it. My daughter has been using this for a couple of years now. She's decided she doesn't want another video game for the holidays or her birthday, but instead she's all about saving for that trip to Disney. So she sends that link out around her birthday and the holidays and says, what I really want is my trip to Disney. So make a contribution to my ABLE account. The person gets it by text or by email, and within about a minute, they can put in the amount that they want, link how they want to make that payment, hit send, and it's done. So that's a really cool feature. I will share with you that out of the 4,000, almost 4,000 ABLE account holders we have now, those people who have activated the gifting page collectively over the last several years have received over $1.8 million in gifts. So when I tell you people do use this, they use it, and it's been very successful. I've seen it used by Special Olympics athletes that are saving to go to a competition out of state. Hey, family and friends, we're going to Delaware. We need to spend the night in a hotel room. Can you want to help me get there? That kind of thing. I've also seen it used for someone who's been in the hospital and had lots of medical expenses. So you can use it however you want it. It's a cool tool. And then there's that payroll deduction somebody was asking about. That's a form that's available on our website that you can fill out and have money go directly from your paycheck to the ABLE account. But this is only set up right now for either the account holder to do it or the ALR. So those are some features about that. Let me take a little pause before we talk about the taxes again and see if there's any questions.
Right, yeah, we got a couple questions.
Okay.
First, is there anything that sets Maryland ABLE apart from other ABLE accounts nationwide?
Okay, great question. And also, Nora, if you wouldn't mind putting this in the chat as well, there's a website, it's www.ablenrc.org. That's ABLE stands for ABLE National Resource Center, and that will give you an overview of all the ABLE programs that are out there. And it actually has a comparison tool that lets you compare a couple different programs based on criteria that's important to you. Okay, so let's just say the most important feature to you is how many investment options they have. I'm just going to use that as an example. You can do a comparison of the state programs, right? And see, like, I think the state of Tennessee has like 11 different investment options. So somebody might be really all about that, right? So what I would say about Maryland is that if you have a Maryland ABLE account and you live in Maryland, your contributions to a Maryland ABLE account are going to give you access to that income deduction. Since this doesn't apply to federal taxes, it only applies to Maryland. People who contribute to an ABLE account that live out of state, they don't qualify for that. So if you were with another ABLE program, say Tennessee, the one that has all the many investment features, you could definitely have a Tennessee ABLE account, but you're not going to be receiving an income deduction on your taxes for that. So I would say the income deduction is one. The other is that we do offer the prepaid card, and not all states do. And I also feel that our fees are amongst some of the lowest from the other ABLE programs, and we'll talk about fees in just a minute. But those would be the things that I think come to my mind right away.
All right, great. And one more question.
Yes.
My son has an NFCU credit card. Can we use ABLE funds to pay the credit card as long as the purchases are qualified purchases?
You could transfer money from the ABLE account to whatever your linked banking account is and pay for that credit card as long as you had the receipts that were on the credit card that would support, that it was a qualified disability expense. So let's just say you had a, Capital One, what's in your wallet Visa card, right? And you bought all the things that were on that card were qualified disability expenses. You could take the money from the ABLE account and write a check to pay that credit card, provided you had all that documentation that those were qualified disability expenses.
All right, that's everything we have for now.
Awesome. So here's that slide again about that $2,500 income deduction. So if a family is, has somebody married filing joint, they can claim up to $5,000 income deduction on their Maryland state taxes if they contribute that much money, right? So remember, grandma, if she lives in Florida, she can still contribute to your ABLE account, but this is not going to help her out because she doesn't pay Maryland taxes. But this is a nice feature. Anybody that contributes to an ABLE account, my daughter's family and friends that give her gifts via her gifting page, they can use those as income deductions. Okay, it doesn't just apply to the account holder or ALR. Anybody can get that. The stimulus payments we talked a little bit about. Thankfully, they have changed their mind. Social Security changed their mind, and they no longer say that they're going to count stimulus funds towards that $2,000 asset. So that's good. But the problem is, if you keep, I shouldn't say problem, but a challenge that some families have experienced is if they keep those stimulus funds in the same checking account as they do SSI funds or other funds, the burden of proof is on the rep payee or the ALR to show that those funds are stimulus funds and not other funds. So it muddies the waters, right? So some people say, just to keep it simple, I'm just going to put it in the ABLE account. I can still get to it whenever I need it, but then I don't have to worry about saying, oh, this amount of money in this account is from the SSI or from other gifts, and this is from the stimulus. So that's one of the nice things. And remember, if the stimulus funds go into the ABLE account, it's able to have earnings tax-free, which is another thing, and you can access it at any time. Account fees, there is a cost to have an ABLE account. It is $35 for the year. It is a maintenance fee that is assessed quarterly at $8.75, and it's also prorated. So people who opened an ABLE account yesterday, they're not paying $35 this year because they didn't have an ABLE account January through September, right? And there's also some asset-based fees if people choose an investment option, and they are all described in our program disclosure book because there are so many different choices for with the mutual funds, that they all have a different fee structure. So that's something that you could look at on there. Okay. As far as enrollment, for those of you that are interested in enrolling in an ABLE account, you can do so at our website at www.marylandable.org. Once you get to that website, you can find our program disclosure book that tells you lots of information about ABLE. Everything you want to know about it is written in that program disclosure book. We also have a frequently asked questions section. So that's a real helpful tool. And all those forms that I mentioned throughout the presentation, they're going to be on that website as well. But once you're at the website, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen right now, you'll see that little like maroon color button that says let's go. You click on that. That's when you're going to open your ABLE account. You would click on it, and the things that you would want to have handy when you sit down to do it, I would recommend that you would have the Social Security number for the account holder and the ALR if you're going to have one. If you have an ALR that is supporting the account management for someone who's an adult, remember that's going to require an extra step. You're going to have that consent that says, yes, you can serve as my ALR. And that is going to be a power of attorney over finance, or it could be guardianship papers that you upload if you have that, if you're a parent serving as a guardian for an adult. Or you could go to the website and download that limited power of attorney that applies to just the ABLE account. And you can have that notarized and you can upload that. The third really important piece of information you're going to need to have at hand is that linked bank account, right? Your routing number, that checking account number, or that savings account number that you want to use. So I would recommend having all those things handy when you sit down to do it. Once you are enrolled in the ABLE account and it's activated, you can access your account 24/7. You can log in anytime. You can make transfers. You can change your investment options. If you moved and you got a new phone number or changed your email address, you log in, you can make those changes right there yourself anytime you want. And there is support for you. We have our customer support team available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. So if you get your account open and you say, oh man, I went to this presentation once and they were talking about that gifting page, but I don't know how to activate that, call up that customer service team and tell them I want to activate my gift page, and they will log into your account with you and walk you through that process. So that's a really good, cool tool to have. Okay. I'm not going to go over all of these because I want to leave a few minutes for extra questions, but this is just a recap of all those numbers we talked about throughout the presentation, and this will be available on your on the slides when I send them to you, just as a little refresh. I want you guys to stay in contact with Maryland ABLE. Please consider visiting our website and signing up for our newsletter. I will promise you this, I will not blow up your email box, promise. I send out 4 newsletters a year, but they're full of really great information about any program updates or changes in Social Security, that impact ABLE accounts. So consider doing that. We have an events page that'll show you other times that we're presenting the Maryland ABLE overview that you can join at any time that you want. Consider following us on Facebook or Twitter. I try to post on Facebook multiple times a week important information that comes out from Social Security or Medicaid stuff or other important resources in the community. That's a really active page there if you want to join that. And the other thing that I'd like to figure out how to get this in the chat, because I don't have the address right now, but if you were to go to the DD Council, Maryland Developmental Disability Council website, and go under their resource section, they have graciously just published a fantastic tool. It's called The Guide to Maryland ABLE, and it was written specifically for the account holder in mind, the person with a disability, their family members, and it's a guide to using your Maryland ABLE account, how to activate the pages, how to enroll, all of it. It's a great tool. It's accessible right there from a PDF off their website. just a fantastic tool that'll help with a lot of information. So make good use of that resource that they've graciously made available for us. That is the end of the information I want to share with you, but I know we have just a minute or two to take any additional questions.
Thank you so much, Kelly. This has been fantastic and so informative. So someone has said that they had a situation during opening of an account when a test question was asked. The account owner was unable to answer the question, and as a result, we could not complete the process.
Okay. I would suggest reaching out to that customer support number that was here on the screen, that 1-855-563-2253. Call customer support and say, hey, I was in the process of setting this account up. Is it still in the system? Can you help me figure out how to answer that question? Sometimes they can help you through that. And if you're not successful, if they're not able to do that, please feel free to reach out to me. Let me know what that question was that caused the stumbling block, and see if we can help figure that out, and how we can go about supporting you in opening that account. That email address that you see on the slide, questions@marylandable.org. That's a great way to reach out to us by email. Any questions that you have that you think about later tonight or tomorrow, next week, whatever, send them to us. We want to hear from you. We want to connect you with information. So reach out to us and see how we can help.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. I really, really appreciate you joining us. And thank you everybody for being here and for all of your excellent questions. And if there is nothing else, I guess we can finish the, oh, Kelly, can you put your email in the chat first?
Oh, yes, let me
Thank
get
you.
to, where am I? Chat. Here we go. Right, Nelson at marylandable.org. Yep, here we go.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you so very much to the Maryland Cash Campaign of Maryland for the Maryland Assistive Technology Program for putting together this fantastic series. I hope you guys go to the other sessions, and thank you so much for giving Maryland Able the opportunity to connect with you guys tonight. I appreciate it.
We really appreciate you being here with us.
Well, thanks
All right,
everyone.
have a wonderful night, everyone.
This will end our webinar tonight, and hope everybody has a good evening, and this will be recorded and posted later. Thanks so much.